So let me play a clip of him, because I want you guys to tell me whether or not you believe that he thinks what he is saying here, or if this is just a figure of speech. So I'm gonna play this video. Let me bring this up.
While David's doing this, just for anyone who doesn't know about this guy, he's the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He's most likely going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. Any moment that an election is called, all the polls show that he's leading it. He sucks on so many levels. And these are kind of more the laughing at him clips than the horrifying racist clips that he's got. Like the guy's like, he's spoken at conferences held by residential school denialists. He hasn't disavowed extremist white supremacist groups like Diagolon, up until the point that one of the leaders of Diagolon actually like made jokes about sexually assaulting his wife. Then he suddenly denounced them. Like he's got like a monstrous rap sheet of shit. He sucks.
And that's on top of the fact that, of course, he pretends he's like a working class hero. Meanwhile, his entire career has been spent propping up massive corporations, voted against gay marriage, voted against cannabis legalization, voted for restrictions on abortion. Like he also criticizes career politicians like Justin Trudeau. His only career ever has been in Parliament. He's been since his early 20s. It's the only job he ever had. Like, he's so funny. But
and he's doing the anti-LGBTQ plus stuff now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
Just like, 6 months behind the US, but same talking points, exact same
on.
shit. Like,
and his supporters, you can tell they're stupid because look at how they spell paychecks. It's wrong. Dumb Canadians.
All right, so listen to this.
The electrician who captures lightning from the sky, runs it through a copper wire to illuminate this room and light up the world is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. The electrician that captures the electricity from the sky and runs it through a copper wire to light up this room, he is extraordinary.
The electrician who captures lightning, runs it through a copper wire to light up your home, tames the most fierce force in nature to make us all comfortable and happy and illuminate this room. He is not ordinary, he is extraordinary.
The electrician who's able to capture
oh my God.
through copper wire.
I love that it's got to be in French too.
En français. He is not ordinary. He is extraordinary.
Even in French. Okay. One time I could see, he's just, being hyperbolic, whatever. 4 times describing the steps and how he thinks electricity is generated.
It's sorcery.
Does he really think this is how we have electricity? They capture lightning from the sky? Like,
wow. Everyone knows it's a mage who powers it with magic.
Of course, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
He's so stupid.
But this is just like, this is the ridiculous, again, as Lance said, this is like the ridiculous part of him. But this guy is not a good person.
No, it's really unfortunate.
I'm sad.
All polling points towards him. That's like, I wish I had.
He's such a Stephen Harper type too. Like same type of like dweeb,
he worked for him.
Establishment type. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
He was the housing minister under him, didn't do shit for housing, and now he's trying to claim that he's the one to solve housing. Like, you were in that position, jackass. You didn't do anything. It's unbelievable.
So sad. Canada, I mean, come on. Why would you copy us when we're doing everything wrong? Don't do the opposite of what we do. Jesus. I don't want to flee to some hellhole that's fascistic.
Since we're on the topic of Pierre Poilievre, this is the clip that I covered this week. It is so fun to watch. So this is going to be a liberal MP that goes after him, but here it is.
Why won't they realize that they're the problem and not the solution?
Alex Jones endorsed him, by the way.
Oh, of course.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition has been masquerading across the country as a working class hero, but it's fascinating when you actually listen to what he thinks people do for a living. In a couple of recent speeches, he said he thinks electricians capture electricity from the sky and that welders weld with their bare hands. What's he going to tell me next? The fishermen in my community dive beneath the ocean and catch them with their bare teeth? Mr. Speaker, I can forgive the opposition leader for being a career politician who's been on the public dime for a couple of decades, but if he wants to represent the interests of the working class, he should talk to a person who has a real job.
I'm telling you, America's missing out by not having this, but not having question period, not having parliament. Like,
Parliament.
I know. Yeah.
I would love to see, Donald Trump, like, when he was president, have to be in this in this situation.
Yeah. Question time is the best part about
it would be good for him.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually,
question time from
he
like
probably
the UK
would.
and
Trump
it's my favorite thing about parliamentarian systems.
Before we were off the poly-F stuff, just one last thing, just so it's not all just just him looking dumb. He's also just very in bed with corporate lobbyists. So they stack their top counsel with corporate lobbyists, and this is while they're discussing how they're gonna work against the liberal corporate corruption. Which, to be fair, yes, the Liberal Party is very much in many ways in bed with corporations. The Conservative Party more so, and they even had there were even grassroots conservative members who tried to exclude lobbyists, and the party was like, no, we're not going to do that. So they were squashed by the majority of members of the party to ensure that lobbyists for whether it's of course, oil lobbyists, pharmaceutical lobbyists, anti-union lobbyists, like this is again all while they're discussing how they're for the working class, real estate lobbyists. So it's just.
It's populism is what it should be recognized for, right? Faux populism, I should say, because that's it's the same strategy you hear from the Tucker Carlsons of the world, where they have why does every pundit have wood everywhere? Why are they in garages doing wood shop and stuff like that? Because I'm the common man, I'm the working man. I know what it is to make something with my own two hands. It's like, motherfuckers, you are so soft. Like the cream.
I'm just amazed how many people are falling for it. Like, I understand not liking Justin Trudeau, especially after almost 9 years of him being prime minister, but. To simply sway to the complete other direction and be like, oh, so I'm for Pierre Poilievre now, who is for all the same things I hate about Trudeau and more. It just doesn't, it's not logical. Now I understand, unfortunately we have first past the post, which is always going to tamp down the ability for third parties to gain any kind of power in this country. But just, people need to be aware of who Pierre Poilievre is and the fact that the Conservative Party, if election were held today, which thankfully it's not, but he would likely form a majority government. I think this is why I'm going to start maybe discussing a little more Canadian politics, every week or so, because I want to put the message out there that people should be aware of who this guy is and don't fall for his bullshit.
I'm curious because one of your videos, David, you said that there was a poll that showed that most young people were going to vote Conservative. Why do you think that is? Because
young men, young men and young women are completely split in this country. But yes, younger voters are skewing conservative.
There was a poll I showed. It wasn't a majority, but there was it was 42% of 18 to 29-year-olds are supporting the Conservatives.
So that's a plurality. That's a lot still.
It's a plurality, but the issue. I mean, again, the issue. I wouldn't say issue, but one of the features of the multi-party system is that you have, the Liberals, the Greens, and the NDP. If you add them all up, it's more than the Conservative Party in support. Mm-hmm. And not saying all those parties are the same, they're not. But I know many voters, including myself, who have voted for all three of those parties. So many of those voters will sway between the party depending on what riding they're in, depending on who has a chance in that riding, or depending on who they like that election. So that's always going to be that's always going to work against the ability for a more left-wing party or the Liberal Party, I guess, to form government, is they have their vote essentially in some ways split among several parties. And that, again, this is why the worst thing the Liberal Party did when they first came in 2015 was not follow through on electoral reform, where they were going to change this. They were going to get rid of first past the post. They were going to move to a system that better represented the people. And that is, I would say, out of any of the things they didn't deliver on, out of any of their, you could say, lies, that is the worst one, because that not only would have helped the country generally, I think it would have helped them as well. Right. But now we're in this situation, or maybe they prefer it this way, where it's it's going to be them or the Conservatives every single time. There's no there's no risk of maybe
they don't want to do a coalition
support.
Ever.
Yeah, there's no risk of losing support to the NDP or the Greens, really, because it's very hard for either of those parties to get any real ground. But that was their biggest failure is not delivering on electoral reform, because first past the post is just shit.
Yeah. Is there a lot of like talk of vote splitting and spoilers? I know it probably depends on the riding that you're in, but like, in the United States, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Like there's always talk of spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Up until recently, I think it's like, okay, well, if I'm in a blue state or red state, but like all my life, it's always been like, oh my God, you have to vote for one of the two parties. Like, is there that same kind of sentiment?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, especially in I'd say in 2015, people were so done with the Conservative Party that there was like a concerted effort that I think was successful to kind of coalesce the vote around the Liberals to ensure that they got out the Conservatives. And since then, people have become more annoyed with Trudeau and the Liberals generally, so that isn't as powerful
They've got
of a
Trudeau
message.
burnout.
Yeah, Trudeau,
Yeah.
which I get it. Trudeau is very just
Performative.
on appearances alone, yeah, very performative, very fake. The way he delivers not even just speeches, the way he talks on camera is very grating. After 9 years of hearing, it's just annoying. So I totally understand that. And then on top of that, people are like, oh, look at the price of gas, and that's Trudeau's fault. Which no. There are things you can blame him for. That really isn't the biggest issue. And now actually their new budget that they released this week, kind of shockingly, raises the taxes on wealthy people to the point that they're like trying to push back against. And there's this big.
It raises the capital gains to, I believe, $250,000. If you make more than $250,000, your capital gains is going up to about 66%, up from what it previously was, which is like a 16% increase. So it essentially applies to like 40,000 people. That's it in the whole country, aka the
0.13% of people is what it applies to.
Yeah,
and
but the rich
they're
and the
out.
not so rich were all so mad about it. Like even the people who it doesn't apply to, like the middle tier, kind of the ones who parrot all the billionaires' talking points, they're all just like, oh, this is just to give welfare checks to the welfare kings and queens so they can buy the fudge rounds, like all that kind of stuff. Like that's not how this works. Like poor people aren't buying homes and living off the the fucking socialist heat. That's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to deal with our massive, insane housing crisis, they're actually going to, at least right now, they're promising to build, I think it's like 4 million new homes, and lease off, I think, public land for some of that as well. So there are some attempts to, and also dealing with rent. I forget exactly how they're doing that, but they're attempting to try and bring down rent costs as well. So that they're actually, attempting some things in the way that I really have not seen the Liberals do before. And I think part of that is they know they're losing a lot of support, especially young people. And they need to get those people to vote for them if they want to maintain any kind of power. Their biggest issue, though, if they really want to maintain power, they have to get rid of there has to be a leadership race. Like he can't like that. I think that's the biggest thing holding them back. Because I covered this poll last week. It shows that Trudeau has these massive unfavorables, but Pierre Poilievre isn't that popular. Like looking at polling of him, he's like around 39%, I think, approval, 34% negative. Jagmeet Singh's around the same numbers. So it's not like the conservative or the popularity of the conservatives is what's driving their popularity. It's the hatred of Trudeau and the Liberals. Trudeau is so hated that it is boosting the Conservative Party. If they just replaced him, I don't even know if there's a perfect replacement. Like, I don't know who you think, Lance, would really help them. Not that I care to help the Liberals, but like against the Conservatives. Like I'm not sure who has a chance. Who would
at this time? No one. No one's old enough. No one's in that sweet Goldilocks zone where you're basically at that age where you're like above 38 but before 50, where you're kind of like that's considered young and upcoming in this particular. Like it's the same thing with American politics, right? You have to be a man who's aged in this really specific zone where it's like, oh, that's a very young politician. Baby Obama was what, like 40 something when he was president, and he was like the youngest president ever. It's like similar to that.
And anytime it's a young person, like when Trudeau was first running, the big line from the Conservatives were, "Oh, he's just not ready. He's just not ready." It's just like if you have somebody who doesn't look like they're old and grizzled, he's too young. He's just not ready. Meanwhile, like I don't know, his dad was the prime minister. If anybody's young and ready for the spotlight, it's probably somebody whose father was prime minister. Which also I think many ways you can work against you and make you disconnected. But I don't know. Like Chrystia Freeland, I think a lot of people don't like her either, so I don't think she's a great replacement. Maybe the guy I just showed you, Sean Fraser. He's the housing minister. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
He has some pretty good one-liners. Maybe he'll be okay. But I don't know. That's what they got to do.
I'll just add this though, because I know obviously I'm sure a lot of the American viewers are tired of us talking about Canada. Although we do talk about America.
No, it's fascinating.
90% of the time.
I'll say.
Yeah, I enjoy talking about it.
That's like, I don't care. I don't care about any of you Canucks.
The thing
I will
give
say
me
this.
is hockey and Bret the Hitman Hart. All right? Anything else?
Hockey, that's right. Starts this weekend.
Yeah. It does start this weekend. Canucks are looking good, David. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, sorry. I will say this. Same thing applies to the U.S. If you're looking towards the next Canadian election, you're feeling depressed, it's most likely, yeah, it sucks because it does look like there's going to be conservative majority. But there are, like, people should also look towards other victories that are happening in other aspects of the left. For example, Canada just had a massive land back victory for the Haida Gwaii people. I believe over 200 islands suddenly are getting land titles signed over from the Crown. So fuck you, England. Fuck you, King. They're going rightfully to the people who will have land title treaty over them. That's huge. It's not really reported mainstream. It's not that sexy. It's not interesting to people outside of the country. But like it's a massive, what I would say, leftist victory for land back against colonization. It's a similar theme to what you're probably hearing in a lot of the world right now. So
nice.
Yeah.
One question I have is because I don't know exactly how it works. So when does Trudeau like have to call an election? I'd imagine he'd wait as long as possible, but like, is there a time limit? Like, does he have to do it within 5 years? So like, when is the deadline basically?
So it will, if there's a no confidence vote, like if basically if the NDP, I think, decide to turn against him, there'll be an election called. But in lieu of that happening, I forget when the next scheduled one is. I think it's next year.
Oh, so they're just kind of scheduled?
So there's both a scheduled one, and there's at any single time, if basically Parliament can't pass a budget, then an election is called. And so right now, for the government that we have, the Liberals have a minority government. So at any given time, they have to be propped up by the NDP to pass their budget. So the NDP have been using that for utilizing soft power. This is actually kind of cool because they're sock Dems. They identify further left than the Liberals are. They've been trying to implement and successfully implemented things like dental care, for example. They got a dental care program passed by saying we're only going to pass your budget if you agree to do a federal dental care program. Now, it's not ideal, and it starts with a whole bunch of kind of checks and balances. You have to be making X amount of money. Like, it's not as universal as it should be, but it's basically they're wielding their soft power in a parliamentary system to prop up the libs. But at a certain point, it can't go on forever, as David's saying. There is a scheduled
so it's October 20th. So on or before October 20th of next year. So that'll be
next year. Okay, so they actually have time to get their shit together. Okay, because I was thinking it was like the UK where I think that the prime minister has to call an election within 4 or 5 years, and they usually wait until like polling is optimal before they call it. Although the Conservatives have just been in power forever, but I thought if you have
if you have a majority, you can call it. Like he could, if he thought he was in a good position, he could call an election.
Okay,
but it there's. As Lance said, there it is scheduled, but it can be called or triggered beforehand.
If they can't pass a budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. See, when we can't pass a budget, we just shut the shit down.
I love it. Government just shuts down.
Yeah, that's why I think parliamentary systems are so much better, just because there's that possibility of coalition governments.
Coalition is good. Better. The problem is it's toxic in Canada for some reason. Whenever it's proposed, like there's been times in the past where there was like an alliance that was trying to be formed between the Libs, the Bloc Québécois, and like a whole bunch of other different factions, and people almost revolted. They were like, "No, the Conservatives won. This is like treason." And it's like, no, that's how parliamentary systems work. But Canadians, I think, don't know it or they don't understand it. But yeah, we don't do it like Europe does. Like Europe does so many, just sometimes wacky coalitions. We're like, whoa, this like far right group is joining with the centrist group. This is joining with a little bit of the Workers' Party. Like we don't get that kind of wacky wild European stuff. Yeah,
I think that's usually because they don't have first past the post. That's usually because they have a proper like electoral system where the parties are kind of forced to work together. Whereas ours, it's a little different.
Yeah, there was in Germany, I think it was like in the 2000s. The Greens were actually in a coalition with, I think, the Social Democrats, and they ended up pissing off so many people because they voted for war just to hold the coalition together because they didn't want to destroy their power, and that was really interesting to see. But yeah. Yeah, I much prefer parliamentary systems. American system is so broken that like anything seems preferable. But I mean, you all have problems too, obviously.
yeah, just varying degrees. And for me, like the American system, the one thing that I find really ridiculous is just the fact that the Supreme Court holds way too much fucking power, and these people are on there forever. I feel like the Supreme Court here is never really discussed. Like you can kind of work around it in government. It's important, but it doesn't
the Senate's
operate
not discussed either.
Yeah, the Senate also is not a really. I mean, it's we have one, but it's not really important in the same way.
It's more ceremonial, right? Like it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes wacky stuff happens. It's one of those situations where, like, what exactly is a governor general? Wait, Canada has a queen? Oh, a king, I should say, as a head of state. That's weird, right? But then it's like the governor general can actually be used in times like Stephen Harper prorogued Parliament for like a certain period of time, and that was seen as highly controversial, right? So there are times when it's like it's just a quorum until it isn't, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, you're actually exercising your authority to suddenly pause Parliament to be able to do something sketchy. Oh, you can do that. All right, well, we're all just finding it out. Yeah, I know. That was wild.
So does your court have, like your Supreme Court, does it have judicial review?
I don't even know the details of how it operates, to be honest with you. Like it's so not a discussion here. It's like I could not give you the ins and outs of how our Supreme Court. I'm not sure if Lance knows, but I could not give you the ins and outs of our Supreme Court.
I don't even know how anything works in the court's rooms.
Yeah, it's very.
And that means that your court system is better than ours, because if you're not thinking about it that much, it's just working better.
I just keep representing myself. That's all I know. It's worked out so far.